Spot On Sports is brought to you by the Belfast Gastropub, where love stories begin. Located at 101 North Wellwood Avenue, Lindenhurst, New York.
Now it's time for Spot On Sports. Here's your hosts, Mike Trez and Mike Cadone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spot On Sports, New York's premier sports talk show where we talk New York sports, all New York sports, and nothing but New York sports. My name is Mike Trez, the great Michael Anthony flying the plane for us tonight. We've got Giants, Jets, Islanders, Mets, Knicks, and Nets all to get to. Before we do any of that, let me say hi to my co-host, the prodigal son. He's back, the coach, Mike Cadone.
Trez, always good to be back in the seats. And, as you were mentioning, all those teams that are in action right now, and minus the Mets, of course, but one of the wonderful things about this time of year is, yes, they're all playing, but no one is out of it at the moment. There's still a lot of hope for the Islanders, the Knicks, the Nets. You didn't mention the Rangers, but for good reason. No, I'm just kidding. But all those teams you can get somewhat excited about. We had some big wins, Jets, Giants, Nets and Knicks looking sharp, so we're ready to go.
Yeah, and before we do any of the basketball or really any of the football, Mike, we've got to get back to the guy who originated the role for us of beat reporter. He's back with us for his second season of action, and of course he reports on the New York Islanders. Our buddy is Johnny Sticks, John Santa Maria. John, how are you this evening?
Great to be back. We got a full 82-game season of hockey. We haven't said that in about 3 years, so it's nice to say that sentence first of all.
Yeah, so Sunday night, John, the Islanders just did look a little bit tired coming off their fourth game in 3 days out in Minnesota. They dropped that game 5-2 against the Wild. Now 5-3 and two overtime wins, two overtime losses to start the season on this very, very long road trip.
Well, when you look at this long road trip, it doesn't feel like it's been long because the schedule has been so broken up in their favor. It's like everyone forgets, the Islanders have a game tonight. They went 4 days before playing in Winnipeg over the weekend, and the trip has been a success. And one thing you like to say in general with the road schedule, you want to try and stay around the 500 mark. And the Islanders should just about get there by the time they get home. They have 3 more games to go, Thursday in Jersey, and then they have a back-to-back in Florida with the Panthers and the Lightning. That won't be an easy trip, but I don't think you could ask for much more.
John, we saw the debut of Varlamov the other night coming off a mysterious injury. There was a lot of speculation on what exactly happened, but of course he was out a long time. Looked relatively sharp early, gave up, a little bit of soft goal there later on. Do you see him working into the mix right now, or is it really Sorokin's job going forward?
I think with this way the schedule's looking, yes, I would start Sorokin Thursday night at the Devils, but then you have another back-to-back next week. So you're going to need 2 goalies. This is a full season. There's a lot of hockey to be played. You're going to have a lot of back-to-back. So as strong of a goalie tandem as this will be, you want to make sure you have both of them fresh. And also, I think we saw a little bit of rust with Varlamov, which I think was expected. I wasn't too disappointed. It was a 5-2 loss. Minnesota's a very good team. A lot of people don't take them so seriously because of some of the other power out on the Western Conference, but they are a good hockey team. They have a lot of young talent. They have a good young goaltender, and they could possibly be a favorite out west. So you're going to lose a game. That's one that's acceptable, and a little shaky for Varlamov. That's what happens. He had no training camp, no preseason, no nothing like the rest of the other guys did.
Yeah, so we want your comments tonight, folks. Our buddy Lenny, who's always in there with good comments. Thanks for commenting us, Lenny. If you guys want to direct your comments to Johnny Sticks, I'm sure he'll be more than glad to address what questions, what concerns you have. You referenced the back-to-back, though, John. That is Tampa and Carolina,
Florida,
Monday and Tuesday. So you got
Florida.
the team that the last 2 years has knocked the knock the Islanders out of the playoffs, as well as the team that right now is on top of the conference. So talk about those two games.
So let's start with the Florida Panthers. There's been as hot as their start has been, one thing that really hasn't been discussed too much is they had to make a coaching change last week because Joel Quenneville had to resign. He was involved with the scandal that happened with the Chicago Blackhawks about a decade ago. So Andrew Brunette took over on an interim basis, former player in the league. He's been on the staff with the Panthers, so we'll see if they keep it rolling. And then Tampa Bay, yes, we know what the Lightning are, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, but they're a little bit of a different-looking team this year. They lost some players in the offseason, like everybody did. They lost a big, it's probably as big piece as Jordan Eberle was going to the Seattle Kraken off their depth, but they were in more of a cap hole situation compared to the Islanders were. So they had some key pieces leave the team. They're off to a little bit of a shaky start, but I think we're going to see really them look maybe a little tired at times throughout the year. They had a couple of long runs and some big breaks in between due to the bubble, and then last year being a short season and condensed. And again, you play the game. This is why you play the games.
Our buddy Ray wants to know, will the team have the chance to skate on home ice before the first game? John, I was going to talk in a little bit about the home opener on the 20th, but Ray wants to know, are they going to have a chance to practice on that ice before that home opener on the 20th?
Barry Trotz said last night during the pregame show, yes, they will. They have 3 days in between that Florida trip. They go to Florida, play the Panthers on the Tuesday night. Then they have 3 days off before the back-to-back with Calgary and Toronto. I will be in attendance at the Toronto game. So next time I come on, the segment should probably be a UBS Arena dedication and maybe talk to the guys in the studio, some photos and some things that come from around the arena. I will certainly take pictures, email those, and we could share some pros and cons of what I see around the building.
Hopefully not many cons to that brand new building, state of the art, and staying true to the Islander legacy, John. I wanted to ask you really quick with chemistry. I'm a big chemistry guy when it comes to teams, and you mentioned Jordan Eberle before. You know, his presence gone now and headed out to the West. Anything with the team, player specific or style, anything surprise you, number one, in a good way, or maybe in a negative way, something to kind of, keep an eye on here as the season progresses?
Well, one thing when you look at with the 9 forwards out there, what a difference it is to have Anders Lee back. Let's start with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then as far as losing Eberle, it essentially wasn't a loss because Kyle Palmieri came back on a contract. And in some ways, Kyle Palmieri is a better overall player. He could do things a little differently. Jordan Eberle on a top line was not always consistent. And one thing I said when the Kraken took him, he's going to get more exposed than he ever did on the Islanders because teams are going to look at him. He's their best scorer. So, little different kind of game. I think Oliver Wahlstrom's taken a nice step forward so far this year. Playing with Zach Parise, having him here helps. The one area that I think is still going to take a little bit of time and maybe finding the right pair, the right combination, is that defense pair. And we saw this last year when Noah Dobson was traded. Actually, not Noah Dobson. Devon Tays was traded.
Right.
And Noah Dobson stepped into the role. And now you're seeing it with Nick Leddy gone and then putting Zdeno Chara in the mix. Chemistry's not quite there yet. Chara's showing signs of a 44-year-old forward, hockey player in this league. You want to maybe give Sebastian Aho and Thomas Hickey some reps too. And you think with more of these back-to-backs, you certainly will, especially now with the home schedule going to come up and then the schedule is going to look a little bit more favorable. You're going to play every other night on a more consistent basis. I would think Barry Trotz is going to give some of those other defensemen chances. And that's where you'll kind of start to see the pairings feel a little bit more comfortable with each other. So really, that's probably the only thing that maybe you've seen a little up and down with the team at the start of the year.
Yeah, there was a little talk out there last week or so about Chara. Does he have everything left in the tank? Is this perhaps, the end of the road for him? He started obviously to play a little bit better. His stats have improved. But I would agree with you. I think you're going to see a little bit of change going on. Maybe he sits a day here or there. The one thing that Barry Trotz kept saying in terms of Chara is that he's the ultimate professional. And of course, you don't get to be in the league that long if you're not a professional. So hopefully it's a matter of, he gets a little bit of a rest here and there. And he certainly has paid dividends as this season has progressed, but something to keep an eye on. I would think you would agree.
One last point I want to get to with Char, just a little bit of comparison. People over the summer were saying, why do this? Why do that? He's 44 years old. One, he's not being asked to play at the pace the Capitals asked him to do last year.
Right.
Char is here because the Islanders were in a cap-tight frenzy, and to get him at a veterans minimum deal with his experience is nothing but beneficial to the team. We know this is probably no more than a 1-2 year thing. Same goes for Andy Green. They're just here to help until the cap gets resolved the way the Islanders need it to be so they can go out and improve elsewhere on defense. But Lou Lamoriello is the type of general manager. He's not going to pass on veterans like those guys.
Comment us, folks. We want your comments this evening. Johnny Sticks now, Chris Caputo in a little while, basketball. Football still to get to, but I did want to ask you, John, about Brock Nelson. He's been on quite a tear lately. He had that 4-goal game, another goal last night. Talk about his contributions to this team so far.
First off, let's remember the term Brocktober. He loves the month of October. But one thing he has done the last couple of years, he's taken Brocktober into every other month of the season. And the day Barry Trotz was hired as head coach of the Islanders, and the way he asked those forwards to play in a team-friendly system, I said this was going to benefit Nelson. And you're seeing him get better and better each year under this system and each game as well.
The last thing I wanted to bring up, Johnny, with you was as I'm looking at stats in front of me, there was a lot of talk about plus minus when the team was struggling a little bit. And, a couple of wins takes care of all that. But you have Josh Bailey, -4. Everybody else is pretty much, plus or minus. Pellick at +8. But the -4 kind of stands out for a guy like Josh Bailey. 6 points, a goal, 5 assists. I was looking also at Palmieri, as you mentioned before, no goals, 5 assists. Wallstrom, 5 goals, no assists. It's very interesting. Is that just a product of early season right now?
Yeah, and again, remember that game in Florida in the early part of the season. This will be the second time the Islanders see the Panthers in the early part of the season when they go back there on Tuesday night. Because they saw them on the first road trip. That was the trip you were thinking of, Mike Trezza, Carolina, Florida to start the season. Now it's Tampa and Florida.
You're correct.
So you would think the Islanders will come in better prepared this time around, and especially a team that is still playing as hot as they did that first week. So that first week was just a little bit of growing pains. I think we're all seeing a little bit of better signs of play. And then last night, too, you lost by 3 goals. So really haven't seen too much of that, and it's just a matter of luck of the draw, as long as that doesn't become a more consistent thing.
Without catching you off guard, John, really quick, I wanted to ask you about the Rangers. 6-3-3 in the early going, giving up a lot of goals, but scoring a lot too. Do you think that it's been the coaching change that's significant there, or do you feel it's just a very young group growing up and ready to take that next step?
No, I think the coaching change made a big part of it. Gerard Gallant's very good. He's a very good coach. They needed to bring some physicality to that team. And maybe that's where some of the disagreements came from up top with Dolan and JD and Jeff Gorton while all those guys were showing the door. I thought David Quinn wasn't going to be back regardless of what happened last year. I did not think above him was going to be gone too. But we've talked about this for 20 plus years with the Knicks. If you don't agree with Mr. Dolan, you're not going to hold the job. If you're not his best friend, you're not going to hold the job. If Gerard Gallant and Chris Drury, not so much a yes, sir, but if they all buy in and they all play well and James Dolan stays away, look at the other team in Madison Square Garden right now.
Yeah,
the same could happen with the Rangers, but as long as the owner stays away, lets the hockey people work. I like Gerard Gallant. The only thing with him is he didn't last more than 3 years in his last 2 coaching stops. So you just got to hope 2 years from now we're not sitting here and saying, oh, he's worn out his welcome because of his aggressive coaching style. But maybe you learn third time's the charm. You may not get another opportunity like this again.
Yeah, John, we're going to talk to you in a couple weeks, but I'm going to tell you, next time Mike Adone brings up with you Josh Bailey. We're going to have Michael Anthony have the Josh Bailey song queued up, and we're going to make you sing it, John.
I've done that plenty of times. I can't wait to do it at UBS. And no, I got to make sure to we got to share UBS pick. Next segment's got to be a UBS dedicated segment.
Well, absolutely. Hey, we look forward to speaking with you in a couple weeks, Sean. Thanks very much. Great job.
Johnny.
Night, guys.
All right, let's go.
All right. So, Mike, nice to get our Islander coverage kicked off, but you and I we need to spend a few minutes on yesterday's Giant game.
Absolutely.
Because I got to tell you, Mike, my wife's been working on Sundays, so I have the whole place to myself. Yeah, no more dogs, kids away, couch, wife is working.
You're in the war room right there.
I can really focus in on the Giant.
Absolutely.
And yesterday, I was actually really glad to do so. And we look at a 23-16 win over the Raiders, and in the last 3 games, the Giants have given up a total of 40 points. Now you're giving up 13 points a game, Mike, and that defense is really starting to get where it needs to get.
Right, because what's always been the calling card of the New York Giants? The defense. So that's a great point that you brought up, and as a Giant fan or just an NFL football fan, when the Giants are good, when their defense is solid, everything is right in the world. So, yeah, takes a lot of heat off of Daniel Jones. We're not micromanaging who's on the field and who's not on the offensive side of the ball. That was a real kind of old-school Giant victory yesterday.
Absolutely. I mean, the kid, Xavier McKinney, defensive back with 2 picks. One for a pick 6 yesterday. I mean, Adoree Jackson, Julian Love, Darnay Holmes, all of these guys in the defensive backfield, Mike, are starting to grow into these roles. Patrick Graham is starting to put together really solid defensive plans going into this game. I mean, to give up 20 points against the Chiefs in their building is really no big sin.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and despite all the hardship, unfortunately, that's been going on with the Las Vegas Raiders, they have a capability of putting a lot of points up on the board, being a dynamic down the field offense. And the Giants really, held them down. And when the game was on the line, they're driving, it's late in the game. What happens? Big sack, fumble, puts the game away. So that's what the Giants need to do. And Daniel Jones just drove the bus, as we like to say, kept it on the road. He only targeted the wideouts, as we were speaking before, 4 times in the entire game.
That's incredible.
That's a stat that is almost hard to believe, but according to Newsday, we're right on the money with that. So, it's only 4 times. So running the ball, got the job done.
Booker, great job.
Yep. Time management and big-time plays by the defense.
Yeah. And, you look at Daniel Jones, you mentioned him. If he can get Galladay, Shepard, Tony, and Barkley on the field at the same time, which, we have a bye week coming up.
Right.
Obviously, the Giants are going to be in much better shape. Offensively coming into these second half games. But you mentioned it, Mike. The defensive backfield played well, and just when we needed them to, the defensive line started putting some heat on the quarterback and caused that strip sack at the end of the game. Giant fans have underestimated the importance of us getting ahead in some of these games, because you look back even to the recent successful teams. We don't need to go back to LT in that group, but I mean the group with JPP and those guys, we would be ahead and they would just keep coming, knowing that the other team had to throw the ball on every down.
Yeah, and that's a dynamic way to play defense. And while it doesn't make the offense flashy and perhaps something that's, exciting to watch all the time, it makes them efficient. So not a lot of pressure on your quarterback. That's where Eli Manning used to shine. Great player who could make the big play when necessary, but he was a master of managing the game. And I think, Daniel Jones has taken a lot of heat because he's had to play from behind. He's had to do things that are not really in his skill set at the moment. They can be from time to time, but when you watch a game like yesterday, that's what's tailor-made for him. and the Giant defense in general.
And speaking with a Giant buddy of mine yesterday after the game, he was focused on the play that Daniel Jones scrambled out of the pocket, made that little spin move, and picked up 5 for a first down. I said, that's not the play I want to focus on. I want to focus on the play 2 plays later where he rolled out to his right side. He realized, I'm on the sideline and nobody's open. What did he do?
Got rid of it.
Tossed it out of bounds. Like Mahomes would do, like Tom Brady would do, like Rodgers would do. And he's learning, Mike.
Absolutely.
I mean, for Giant fans that still can't see that this kid can play, what are you looking at?
You know what? It's so funny you say that, Mike, because as you were speaking, I was thinking about that a couple of weeks back. We were talking about how vanilla the Giant offense was, and is Jason Garrett doing anything to get Kadarius Toney involved? Is there anything that they can do to put some points on the board and whatever else? And they came out in some different formations yesterday. The wing tee, there was all sorts of things out there, but that was just to kind of get obviously Las Vegas on their heels early on in the game. But they didn't need to do any crazy stuff later on to win the football game. And what do we do, as Herm Edwards says? We play to win the game.
Absolutely. Even at 2-6, you play to win the game. You're not going to toss away the season. No. Even if you had a bad loss to Atlanta, you had a terrible gut-wrenching loss to Washington early in the season. Those two, I hope, don't come back to bite you. But you also had a terrible loss out at KC. Those are the 3 losses that are really listen, the Dallas game, you weren't really in that game. The Rams game, you got blown out of a cannon.
Right.
But those 3 games are really going to come back to haunt you. So what I really want to know from Coach Mike Gadone, Mike Gadone,
I'm on the hot seat right here. Okay.
On November 8th.
Yes.
Are Mike Gadone and Mike Trezor and all Giant fans out there fooling ourselves to think that at 3-6, the Giants could get back in this race and be a factor for a wild card this year?
I hate to say it, but I think that's really asking a lot.
Oh, yeah, you're killing me.
I know. Well, listen, I got to be honest. But and that's what's wonderful about this and sports in general. I hope I'm wrong, but what I will say is what I'm looking for is this just continued. Let's be disciplined. Let's play Giant defense and then see where it is.
And yesterday they finally did play discipline.
They did.
They played discipline.
I just think at 3-6 and with the strength of the Cowboys within the division and just the overall strength of the NFC to get them back in. They're not. I don't believe they're going to fall so far out of it that it's going to be like you'll be there in December going, when are we looking at the NFL draft? It's not going to go that far, but I just think they're a little far behind. I just want to see this consistency. Give us something to get excited about. I know it's a lot to ask, but can I mention this to you?
Yeah.
The Giants at 3, where are we now? 3-6. Their best 9-game record since 2016.
That's incredible. But what I do want to counter with, Mike, is a couple factors that might mitigate your belief that they won't be able to get back into it. Number one, the NFC is a little top heavy this year.
It is.
Now, you can probably surmise that whoever doesn't win the West out of Arizona and the Rams is going to be wild card 1, right?
Absolutely.
I think everybody is sort of taking for granted that Tampa is going to win that NFC South, right? And then you have teams like Carolina and Atlanta and the Saints, who are not bad teams, but they're not good teams.
Right.
Those are the teams that the Giants may be fighting for the wild card. Now, you look at it. Yeah, we lost to Atlanta, but we beat the Saints and we beat Carolina.
Right.
So we finished with the same record as either of those 2 teams. We get it. They're out. Then you have to look at 2 more things. Number 1, 17-game schedule.
Right.
Number 2, 3 wild cards this year.
Those are all great points. And like we said, we hope that your mode of thinking and that extra game and what we're talking about is huge. You can't discount, you mentioned the Saints, who to me are the best of that group. Losing Jameis Winston, really, really tough. I mean, that was a killer. Who would have ever thought that Jameis Winston was going to be, someone you said, you can't overcome that. Trevor Siemian played a very, very strong game. I was actually down in Georgia yesterday on a trip with my wife, and it was all Falcons, Saints all over the place. And Siemian kept them going. They're a strong team, but that was a brutal loss for them. And as you mentioned, Giants already have one in their pocket against them.
Yeah. Our buddy Russ is commenting he wants the Giants to win the next 2 out of 3.
Okay.
And then he'll get excited. But the other thing I wanted to mention to you, Mike, and again, maybe I'm fooling myself. If I am, I am. But the Giants' schedule gets a lot easier in the second half.
Yes.
We have to play the Dolphins this year. I don't care what else happens. We're beating the Dolphins this year.
Amen.
We have to play Philly twice. Philly is certainly.
They're an anomaly. So some games tremendous, other games you're like, who is this team?
Yeah. I mean, we still have to play Washington in our building. We still have to play Dallas in our building. The only 2 tough games I'm really looking at in the second half that I say, we're going to have a tough time with those games. Obviously, after the bye week, we get Tampa on a Monday night. So that's going to be tough. And that game is in Tampa.
Right.
Then, and we're terrible on Monday night. Can we be honest?
But true, but actually have not played poorly in Tampa recently.
No, that
Daniel
is true.
Jones had his best game as a pro in Tampa.
That is true. The other game down the stretch that's going to be tough. We still have to play the Chargers, and that's going to be tough. But again, some of these easy games, you get the Dolphins, you get Philly twice, you get Washington in your building, and Dallas. I still think we owe Dallas one.
And if Dallas plays like they did yesterday, I'll tell you,
blown out of a cannon by the Browns.
Dallas looked like they never showed up yesterday, and it was for them having Dak Prescott play was important and play a whole game, and that's kind of the spin that's going on in Dallas right now. Well, we just wanted him to be healthy and play the whole game, which he did, but it looked like the JV against the varsity yesterday against a Broncos team that really was kind of treading water, and Teddy Bridgewater went in there, looked like the second coming of John Elway.
I don't want Jet fans to get annoyed with us.
No,
Mike.
We got Lenny. I hope Lenny's still watching because we got to talk Jets.
Lenny
if you're
took
out
off.
there,
He's like, "You're not talking Jets. You're not talking Yankees.
hit
I'm
me
out of
something,
here."
Lenny. Come on.
So Jets.
Yes.
Big deal over that great start by Mike White against Cincinnati. He played great that day.
Absolutely.
Terrific day. But then that second start, that 45-30 Thursday night game, and honestly, Mike, can we be honest? It was not that close.
No, it was not.
So I'm going to ask you for the Jet game against Buffalo this coming Sunday, should Mike White stay under center, or should he go?
That's a great question. Great question, along with some great audio right there.
Wow, we're going right from the Clash to Jeopardy. Oh, by the way, Michael Anthony, 1 year ago today, Alex Trebek passed away. 1 year ago today. And you know I know that because Jeopardy's very near and dear to me. So go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, listen, that's great audio, and we got the video right here. Mike White, should he start? Yes, he should. He should start until Zach Wilson is 1,000% healthy and ready to go. And I don't think it hurts also to have Zach on the bench and watch other quarterbacks, including Josh Johnson, who off the scrap heap, operate their offense. And
Johnson did some nice things in that Indy game. Now,
Absolutely.
They were out of it at that point, but you're moving the ball and you're scoring nonetheless.
True. So is it a matter of, and I was talking to somebody the other day about Mike White. Is Mike White somebody, a one-timer who comes in, or is he almost like, or is he a Kurt Warner who you never, came in out of nowhere and is now becomes a star? It's so difficult. It's a nice problem to have for the Jets if they're winning, of course, but they're not winning these games, with the exception of the Bengal game, which was, I think, shocked the world.
It's a signature win. It's a good win over a good team.
Most definitely, and nobody expected that. Mike White, give him as much time as you can, and then when the rookie prodigy is ready, bring him back. But why not? You have nothing to lose right now with Mike White. Hopefully the Jet defense can keep it to a point where if they're scoring these points, it's not a shootout each week.
What are you going to say to the guy who makes the counter argument back to you that if you don't start Zach Wilson, you are taking valuable games off of it? His first seasons where he's inexpensive for the franchise.
It's a great argument as long as the man is healthy 100%. There's no reason to throw him back out there if his knee is not, crystal clear and ready to go. Otherwise, what was everybody clamoring for before? A veteran presence in the locker room. They go out and trade a 6th-round draft choice for Joe Flacco. And in the press conference announcing
Flacco.
this trade, they said he might start a game. They were literally trading a 6th-round draft for one potential start. And Flacco's he's not even going to see the field.
He's like number 4 on the depth chart right now. I mean, this is a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
I think I'm going to see snaps before he does.
But you know what? What's interesting, though, Mike, is we look at the Jets' schedule after Buffalo. Yeah. They have Miami, and then they have Houston. So if I'm Zach Wilson and I'm watching Mike White play, I'm saying to myself, Coach, get me in there. I got to get a couple of these wins underneath my belt here.
Wins, yes, but just play well. Just play well. So, there's no doubt Zach Wilson is the future of the New York Jets. They didn't trade up and do everything and get rid of Sam Darnold, which now it looks like a solid move as he's come down to earth down in Carolina. If Mike White is the second coming, fantastic. You trade him down the line. Like I said, it's a great problem. But I can't see Zach Wilson being the next Josh Rosen, where you're a 1st-round draft choice and within 2 years you're off the team.
All right, folks, we've got Chris Caputo waiting in the wings to
little Met baseball.
Yeah, we're going to talk some Met baseball, some hot stove Met baseball right after the break. We'll be back in just 30 seconds here on Spot on Sports.
Hi, my name is Dave Crow, proprietor of Belfast Gastro Pub in beautiful downtown Lindenhurst. We are the heartbeat of the village, serving exceptional dishes throughout the day, created by our executive chef, James Tomlinson. Whether it's to dine in our purpose-built outdoor dining area that seats 60 persons, or to enjoy a pint or a cocktail at our 40-foot mahogany bar. We also have a private catering room that can accommodate up to 60 guests. Love stories begin at Belfast.
Now back to Spot on Sports with Mike Trezor and Mike Godone.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spot on Sports. Mike Trezor, the coach, Mike Godone, and joining us on Zoom right now to talk about the Mets is our Mets beat reporter, a member of the 7-Line Army, Caputo, Chris Caputo. Chris, how are you?
Hey, guys, hope you can hear me all right.
Absolutely, 100%, pal.
You sound great. So, Chris, I don't know if you remember the game show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Okay, this game is Who Wants to Be the Mets GM? And apparently the answer to that question is nobody. What's going on, Chris?
Who wants to work for a $2.57 billion baseball team owner who tweets too much about his players in a negative connotation, right?
There you go.
So,
and I think we've now gone through 12 people that have said no to the Mets.
Yeah, and it's funny, Chris, because, all right, Theo doesn't want the job. I can live with that. But now we're targeting people from really small markets, Milwaukee, St. Louis, all these people. And it's not just that they don't want the job. They don't even want to be interviewed for the job. I mean, I'm flabbergasted, I have to tell you.
And I think a lot of it stems from you have a guy with a lot of money and you want to make sure that you're working for an organization that's actually doing the right thing. And some of it has to do with working for, Steve Cohen and what he's tweeting out. And you guys know that the other half has to do with the 74-year-old man who just won't leave the picture. And did you know that the GM meeting started today in Carlsbad, California? And guess who is the acting GM of the New York Mets?
Sandy
Alderson. And it's just crazy that he's the guy who wants to go off into the sunset. He wants to sit back, but yet he has to be the guy. And he, I understand last year the Mets, actually, I think it's almost a year to the date that Cohen became the Mets, and there was a lot of paperwork behind it. So it took another month until they got their GM position. And that guy lasted 1 month until they found out he was tweeting people in the Chicago Cubs organization.
Oh, my.
The next guy lasted 11 months, but he really only lasted about 6 months till he got pulled over for DWI. And now we're looking at Sandy and his son running the club.
Yeah, so if you take the GM job, you're going to have an Alderson on top of you, and then you're going to have an Alderson underneath you. You're going to basically be the meat in an Alderson sandwich, if you will.
Yeah, and you're the president of baseball operations. Are you the GM? Are you someone just in holding? And I know you guys are going to ask, what do I think? I really don't know at this point. When you've gone through 12 people and everybody keeps saying no, and the only guy who basically wanted the job was Brian Sabian, who probably could have came along with Bruce Bochy as a package deal.
Oh, that would have been wonderful.
The Mets turned him down. And why? I think it's a power thing. A lot of people who work for Cohen say that he's a tough person to work for, that once you make a bad trade, he's going to come after you. So I think that kind of falls behind it. People don't want to work, with Alderson kind of looking on his side. I've kind of heard some good things about Alderson's son rising in the ranks, but in the same sense, you kind of need a clean slate. We've talked about this many times. I really think that the longer this goes on, the more of a chance that the Mets just take somebody within and just keep that person for a year. But you guys know that the question after that then becomes the manager, and you can't get the manager until you get the general manager.
Absolutely. Chris, it's a weird business model. If anything, you look at Steve Cohen. I mean, obviously he's new to being a baseball owner. How much he actually knows about the game, or how long he was studying, or was Sandy Alderson in his ear for you? Who knows? But you're 100% correct. You have to, in order to get the field general out there, you have to get everything above it set properly. It just doesn't seem a smart business deal for me to have someone directly under who might be there, might not. Like you said, what's his job? It almost would make more sense, as Chili Davis, who chimed in this week, clean house. And I'm not saying Sandy Alderson is a bad guy, but as somebody who would be working for the Mets organization, as you said before, let's just, start from the top down now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where it lands right now, is when you keep getting turned down by so many people, how are you going to go out in the free agency and start asking, hey, do you want to come play for us? As I said last show to you, Mike.
Are we having a little technical difficulty here for a second?
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a second. Am I back?
That's okay. You're back. Yep.
As I told you last time, I think the collective bargaining agreement is not going to kick in right away. So I think the Mets are going to have some time to get some free agents, but you got to get things settled before you try and, hey, we're back in business. It's January 1st, and who are we going to go get? And I don't think they're settled right now. And, we could sit here and throw names out all we want, but as of right now, the Mets have no one. And I think that hurts guys like Carlos Correa and guys who are looking for a place to go.
So let's talk about a couple of the guys that may be back. I mean, you and I talked about it last time, Chris, when you were in the studio. We talked about Conforto and we talked about Syndergaard as being two of the guys that were probably going to get qualifying offers. Those qualifying offers, from what I understand, now are on the table. How do you think those two situations shake out?
I still stick to my guns that Conforto goes and Syndergaard actually accepts it. But I could see the Mets actually not using the, working something out with Syndergaard to go even beyond that.
So that qualifying offer then would kind of buy them the time then to negotiate with him.
Yeah, and, getting Syndergaard for $18 million, I don't know if it's necessarily a great move because, he really hasn't pitched in 2 years. And we saw what happened with, Stroman kind of was okay, but Walker this year was horrible after the All-Star break. So I think once the innings kick in, Syndergaard after, 9-10 starts might be damaged goods by the end of the year.
I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
that's
Mike.
fine. I was just going to say, going forward with him, Chris, Syndergaard, if you're going to extend him, would have to be a hugely incentive-laden deal, you would think, based on all sorts of markers him meeting, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I think he's happy to stay in New York, so he's not looking for that much. But I think Conforto, for some reason, feels like he's
Yeah, we just keep losing you there, Chris.
Gonna
Sorry.
get more.
You're good. You're okay. Now you're back.
I think Conforto.
I think
Thinks
what,
he needs.
yeah, we just keep losing to Chris. I think if I'm on the same wavelength as you, I think what you were alluding to is that Conforto thinks either he was done wrong by the Mets or just needs a change of scenery.
Yes, I think both people think the same way. I think it's time to move on, and the Mets have to get a new outfield. I think they have to really look to see if they can maybe get 2 or 3 new guys. Think about what the Braves did this year. They got 4 new outfielders at the All-Star break.
Unbelievable.
And won themselves a World Series.
So, Chris, because you're breaking up, I'm just going to give you one more, okay? Let's assume that in fairly short order, we can get a GM in place. Can you give me just 2 or 3 names on who you would like to see? Who you, Chris Conforto, 7-Line Army guy, Spot on Sports Met reporter, would like to see?
That was a Freudian slip right there with Chris Conforto.
Oh, did I say that again? I knew I was going to do that.
No, you're good.
Who you would like to see get an interview for manager?
I'll give you a couple, and it sounds strange, but I like Joe McEwing, Carlos Beltran, and either Bruce Bochy or Buck Showalter for a year.
All right.
Solid names. You would really – do you think that the public would accept Beltran coming back?
I think the other 2 guys that got hammered by this worked their way back. Cora worked his way back. But I don't think that Beltran has the pedigree. He hasn't done it before. But at this point, everything's such a comedy that why wouldn't you bring back Beltran and see how it works?
Oh, absolutely. All right, Chris, listen, thanks a lot. Great job as always. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. And
hopefully by then we have something in place here, right?
Yeah, well, I got to give my plug. I am excited that even though they're a rival to the Mets, that the Braves did win the World Series, and I got to see, Ian Anderson pitch 5 no-hit innings and get pulled from the game. If you guys want to talk about that, talk about analytics killing entertainment.
You were not happy that evening.
That sums up all that's
wrong. What are you going to do? I mean, analytics and entertainment do not go hand in hand.
Great point.
I think you ought to take a bow for coaching that kid. But great job by you. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, guys. Enjoy.
Thanks, Chris. Be well, buddy.
All right. Got some more people commenting us, folks. We're going to dig into basketball, but if you have a comment to react to what Chris just said or what Johnny said earlier, what was that last comment, Mike? I couldn't read it.
Yeah, we got a lot on the table here tonight.
Beltran already took the Mets for more money. So Mike Robert does not want to see Beltran get an interview.
All right, Mike.
But let's shift gears right now, Coach, and talk some basketball. Knicks season, Nets season well underway. We'll start with the Knicks. Lost to Cleveland. That coming off a really good win a couple nights earlier against the defending champs, Milwaukee.
If there's such a thing as a letdown game, I think that was it. We keep using the term with all these teams. It's early chemistry, but that's really true. I mean, last night, Knicks were missing Kemba Walker. Now, Kemba has not exactly been lighting the world on fire here at the beginning.
Let me stop you there a second, because he was really good at the beginning. It seemed like he took a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, I don't know if it's if he's just physically not right or there's a style. It's very interesting. And through 9-10 games here, he's yet to really find his stride. Kudos to Derrick Rose, who has found his stride and then some. Almost at points looking like the Derrick Rose of old, but he can take the team over. When they're both on the floor, very interesting look. What I've been super impressed with, and I think you would agree with me, is R.J. Barrett.
Yes.
He's taken the next step as a scorer.
19 a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And hit 30, and while his 3-point shooting is never going to be or at least for the rest of the season, perhaps not where we would like it, you can really see his maturity on the court and his physical maturity as well.
But importantly, now you can see what the Knicks were thinking with drafting him with the number 2 or number 3 overall pick, right?
Absolutely.
But just to get back to the point you were making, Mike, about Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Kemba Walker, 12.7 points a game, 3 assists a game. Derrick Rose, 12.7 points per game, 3 assists a game.
Right.
It's so funny because we talked about this last year with the 3-point guards that they all had exactly the same stats.
Exactly. And if you talk to Coach Tom Thibodeau or read anything today that he was speaking about, all he cared about was defense. And of course, that's his calling card. So while they were struggling for offense last year, doesn't seem to be the issue right now. The defense will come along with this group, and it's different assignments. It's a little different kind of thought process out there. So that, you know what, there's arguments as a coach and as a former player on not much higher level than high school. We can say, what comes first? Is it offense or defense? Generally, the defense is the thing that will get you out there, and the offense is slower to come. Seems to be almost the opposite right now.
With the Knicks.
What got me concerned is this. Ricky Rubio, all right, who I had been dying for this guy to be a New York Knicks.
He lit it up like a Christmas tree last night.
Right. Do you know how many points he scored in the previous game? 0.
Wow.
Ricky Rubio, I, and Mike Anthony over there all scored the same amount of points in that last game. And
now I feel good about my game.
Okay, and then he breaks out for a career high 37 points last night.
Yeah, he was lighting them up.
Which it was astounding. You're not going to get too crazy about it, but you do as we mentioned with the Giants. What's the identity now? Defense. You got to get back to it.
2 guys I do want to ask you about on the Knicks, Mike. And I have to be honest about this. I kind of yawned a little bit when they acquired Evan Fournier. Okay, but Evan Fournier, 15 points a game,
absolutely,
and a really, really important second option for that offense of the Knicks.
Great basketball IQ, and now you can see his arrival has done what for RJ Barrett? Made him relax. He doesn't have to score, as the second option all the time. He's a third or a 2A option. So you have Fournier in there, and that helps, a tremendous, tremendous amount. So, again, for me, a guy like Fournier, who has been around the block a little bit, brings so much to the team.
And the other guy I have to ask you about.
You're going to say Obi Toppin?
No. I was going to leave Obi to the side. I'm going to give you a break on Obi.
I think that's a first and second reference to those of you who have tuned into Spot on Sports since last January.
But there is a kid that you and I both did fall in love with last year, and Knicks fans did. Yeah. All Knicks fans did. And you know where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Because now it seems like his role has been, at least for the time being, significantly diminished, and that's Emmanuel Quickly. Yeah. How do you give Quickly some run, Mike? Continue to have him develop when you have both Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose. Now, we said Walker started strong, took a step back. Rose has found a little bit of the fountain of youth, right? How do you work Quickly in to that 3-point guard rotation?
Boy, that's the $1 million question. I don't know if you can. I almost think in kind of a weird way that the Knicks are waiting for either Rose or Walker to be out for some extended period of time. And then that's when Quickly's going to find his way again. He's too dynamic, I think, to keep him on the bench. You could even put him in to really just defensively pick it up now and go from there. But as the third guard, his minutes. He's at 15 minutes a game right now, which is I didn't even think he was playing that much.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Right.
Every time I put it on, he's not on. He's not on the floor, Mike.
He's not.
And one of the things that I feel has happened with him, maybe it just happens to be when I am catching in the game, which I'm not always. I mean, it's early in the season. I got other stuff.
The NBA is way too long. I mean,
exactly.
It's just who's who are almost already.
But when I do turn it on, it seems like he's falling in love with that teardrop floater.
Yeah.
And he's not hitting that shot often enough to for you, the coach, to continue to give him that shot.
Right. Well, anybody that's looking for playing time, What are they going to do? They're going to go back to what they feel most comfortable. And then when that doesn't work, then you really start to press and you start to question yourself. Shooters have to shoot. Playmakers have to make plays. So what is Quickly going to do? He's going to go, all right, well, listen, I've had all the success with that type of drive, getting on the free throw line, those kinds of things to try to get involved in the offense and make something happen, to prove he belongs there. It's a really, really tricky thing for him and for the coaching staff.
And I just want to remind you, folks, before we transition to the Nets, number one, still have plenty of time for you to comment us tonight. Number two, just to remind you, we're not only on YouTube and Facebook, obviously. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now we are on Channel 115 every Saturday at noon. You can see Mike Adone's face, which is clearly going to be the thrill of your lifetime.
Oh,
and
you are way too kind.
We're going to be on every Saturday at noon. The great Michael Anthony's doing a tremendous job of editing our file and uploading it to public access. So if you can't catch us now, catch us then.
The only thing that comes next is what? Pay-per-view.
Exactly. Yeah, but if we do pay-per-view, you and I are going to have to put on gloves and be squaring off in the middle of a ring.
You're going to make me become a Jet fan against the Giants. And really, I'm going to have to take my somewhat dislike for Kyrie Irving even further. So that's our segue into the Brooklyn Nets.
An excellent segue. So the Nets, Mike, to start the season were 2-3. And everybody said, oh, my gosh, they can't play without Kyrie. Oh, my gosh, it's going to be a disaster. Oh, this is terrible. Since then, 5 in a row, now 7-3, their best start. And I think I heard correctly, 20 years or 40 years. Okay, so listen, first question we have to get to, and you already let the cat out of the bag. Do the Nets have enough in this rotation with Kevin Durant, with James Harden, with LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, Patty Mills? Do they have enough with those guys, Mike, to get those minutes distributed and say, hey, you know what, Kyrie, you don't want to play this year? Get lost. We have enough. We're winning games. Do they have enough?
They do. And I have to say, I became a much bigger admirer of the Brooklyn Nets when they said to Kyrie, thank you for being on the team. You can be paid for those games that you would be eligible to play out of town. You're not, we're not even going to consider having you on the roster for those games because you're not eligible to play at home. So that's a big time strong point in an otherwise crazy professional sports world. So I will say that because it's, we can't even, thank goodness, get into Aaron Rodgers, but to make those kind of correlations would be a little tough right now. But this is a team taking a stand. So kudos to them. But to answer your question, yeah, they do. They really, these are professional guys. You worry they're a little long in the tooth, but LaMarcus Aldridge, to me, has really added something in that center forward position. He's come back strong, playing with juice, enthusiasm. And, Patty Mills hasn't shot the ball really well, but he can get hot. Blake Griffin, he's done whatever, once again, they've asked him to do.
And LaMarcus Aldridge, Mike, he's had a couple games in the past week and a half. He could not miss.
I know.
I mean, right now he's averaging 13 a game, 5 rebounds a game, which, again, not terribly impressive, but
you don't need anything more than that.
Absolutely. Certainly making a contribution. And don't forget, you're always going to have KD at somewhere up around 28 points a game, which is where he is right now.
Right.
But playing 35 minutes a game. Now,
exactly.
You talk about load management. You don't like the term. And I get that you don't like the term. I agree with you. But because I don't want to see Kevin Durant playing 35 minutes a game.
Sure.
But I will say this. After the Nets won 5 in a row, I think the conversation in Kyrie's apartment went something like this. Hey, Doc, I really am thinking about getting that shot. Do you have any openings anytime this week?
It would not surprise me, although he's taken this stand of there's no way this is going to happen and whatever else. And again, those of you who have watched our program here or listened to our program for quite a while, my disdain for Kyrie Irving has known no boundaries. But I will say this. I have to give him some credit for sticking to his guns. I don't agree with him whatsoever. I think it's awful, but it really has surprised me that he stayed out this long. But I would tend to agree with you that phone call was made somewhere, or there's chatter in his apartment.
That phone call's coming, Mike. If it wasn't made yet.
What was the one last thing maybe they were hanging their hopes on was that there was going to be a change come January with the policies in the city of New York. The mayor-elect has said, no change in policy. Sorry, that's not happening for Kyrie or anybody else. So that ship sailed.
So KD, 28 points a game, 35 minutes a game. Harden, almost 18 points a game, 9 assists a game, Mike, which, let's be honest. You don't have a guard that's averaging those assist numbers.
And Kyrie, and I'm sorry, James Harden, doesn't he finally look fit?
He does. I know that was a big one with you last year.
And that was, I think, trying to play his way through it. And even in that, with injuries and those types of things, got to give the man credit. Once again, here it is. It's crazy, Mike. Mike Quinone giving the Brooklyn Nets credit.
That's nice. Listen, I'll take all that you got.
It's good for us. It's good for New York basketball.
Chris is commenting us. He wants a 3-way trade. What's the trade he wants? Ben Simmons and Oladipo, Lowry to the 76ers, and Kyrie to the Heat. Not bad, Chris. If we had a little more time, we could dig into that, but we have to be really disciplined and hold it to an hour. But I appreciate the suggestion, Chris.
That's not a crazy trade.
It solves problems for a couple different teams. Obviously, the Ben Simmons thing we could get into at another time. But for now, folks, we have to say that's going to do it for us tonight on Spot on Sports. We got to a lot. We got to Islanders, Mets, Giants, Jets, Knicks, Nets. So I want to thank Johnny Sticks for being back in the fold. Thank you, Chris Caputo, not Chris Conforto, Chris Caputo for hopping on, talking some Mets with us. We're here at Format Studio in Deer Park. Our producer-engineer is the great Michael Anthony. Our theme music is by Scott Daly. Our logo art is by Valerie Hanatic. The Jets fanatic. Our voiceover guys, the amazing A. Archie Snowden. And for everyone here at Spot on Sports, including my partner, Mike Cadone, this is Mike Trezor thanking you for watching and saying we'll see you next time on Spot on Sports.
Spot on Sports is brought to you by the Belfast Gastropub, where love stories begin. Located at 101 North Wellwood Avenue, Lindenhurst, New York.